Okay, so I'm going to tell you about my Fix the Mix project. Lit. But I just have to apologize first because today God is like really testing me. Not only have I been working on this Fix the Mix for the last like 5 days and been up to like 4 a.m. every night. I'm exhausted. Thank you for asking. But my screen recorder just broke. So I was talking for like 30 minutes and it did not record any of that. So I'm going to start again and I'm going to have to film it on my phone, which is a bit annoying, but hopefully you can still see stuff and hopefully my fingers won't get in the way. Although I apologize if they do. So let's just hide this because I don't need it anymore. It's dead to me. So yeah, this was one of the hardest tasks I've ever done in my entire life. Not only because I don't read music. Like, I played piano once in my life, and I was really, really bad, so I gave up. And I did singing up to grade 5, but then I had music theory, and I stopped before music theory. I also took music at GCSEs and then, like, bailed out of music. So you can see my, like, life with music has been kind of complicated. So it's kind of surprising that I'm doing advanced digital music techniques. I have no idea why I chose this course. But I really enjoy doing music production. So this task was a massive challenge to me because I had to figure out which stems to use, basically using the score that I was given. And so what I did is I went on immediately, and first I had to even figure out what I was doing. So I basically went and I decided to do the medium task. And so I got and downloaded the whole album and uploaded it into my DAW. I'm using Ableton 10 Live. And these are all the individual stems from the recording sessions, and 2 are the masters. And that's how I figured out. Because at first I was like, how the hell are we supposed to know which order things are supposed to come in? Then I realized we had the masters. So what I did is I downloaded it all in my DAW, and I used the command key and copied it all across so that it came neatly all into my DAW. All like, I don't know how many files. And then what I did is I listened individually to each one, and then I went back and listened again. And I tried to figure out which instruments were which. And that's when I realized we had the score. Because I was like, how the hell am I supposed to know which instrument is which? And that's when I looked here and I realized we have 5 different instruments that I'm looking for. So one was the clarinet. We had a cabasa, temple block, xylophone, and marimba. Which all sound pretty similar to me. Apparently they're quite different. So I had to actually look up online and watch videos on what each sounded like, because I'd obviously had a xylophone, I had a bass clarinet, but I never had a marimba or temple blocks. I was really lucky because within the recordings, very kindly, I was given this one which told me it was a marimba, so I could match those up. And then the other ones I guessed sort of by process of elimination. So I hope that I got it right. Otherwise that'd be kind of embarrassing. So yeah, I went through and basically I just deactivated all the clips that I knew I wasn't going to use. So I did that, and then once I had done that, because I didn't want to mess up this DAW, and I wrote notes also on my phone saying yes, no, basically to every single clip, and then like yes to the second part, but no to the first part, because it was terrible. And then what I did is I copied them all across, and I went into my Fix the Mix second attempt to fix the mix. Let's just save that. Better safe than sorry. So yeah, this is my second Fix the Mix. So my second Fix the Mix, I then decided to start cutting. So all the ones that I said, like, the first part was good, but the second part was bad, I basically just cut out the first part and then, like, stuck together the second part from the one that I really did like. / deleted some more ones that I was like, they're duplicates and I don't need them. So I just cut it down even further. And some of them I even stuck together quite a lot, but different ones. Somewhere in there. But yeah, you can see I've cut it down drastically now, so it's much more simple. But then I wanted to order it so that all the saxophones were together, all the marimbas were together, like, not saxophones, clarinets. No, it is saxophone. No, it's clarinet. Oh, I actually don't anymore. But yeah, so each different instrument were together. So then I went to my ordering Fix the Mix, that's where it was. This is my 3rd DAW station using. This is where things started getting a little bit complicated, because I realized that, so the hardest thing for me to do was I had to then stick them all together, so that they were in order and played like in unison. So not only did I have to stick all the xylophone pieces together, make sure it made one track and matched with the score, but I then also had to stick together all the saxophone tracks and then make sure that the saxophone tracks matched the xylophone tracks in terms of like where they came in sync, which was the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. So what I did was I first started by sticking them all together and matching those with the score, which you can see this sort of patchwork pattern here. Some of them didn't fit perfectly or had like annoying pieces in the background that I just didn't want anymore, so I cut them out and then made a little gap so that they would fit the timing. And then what I did is I basically went, luckily I was given this nice master file, and I took the master and I basically lined up my thing like Calabash or whatever and matched using warp markers, which, let's see if I can show you. These are warp markers, but some of them have far more. You'd be laughing if that was just one. No, so basically I just went through with these warp markers and warped it exactly to the master file. Each individual line of music was warped, and then, which was a nightmare, especially when the tempo blocks had a recording of the saxophone or the clarinet in the background, and it was played in the wrong time, so it was playing at the wrong moments. So there was like parts which like we didn't want to hear the saxophone at all because it was just completely out of tempo and in the wrong place. So I had to try and figure out a way of cutting it out. So I had to like chop bits up again and then stuck it all back together. And the reason you can see one united track here is because I clicked the Command J key, which allows me to join all these individual tracks together. So this was individuals, and then I merged them to make one beautiful master track, which only took me like 4 days to do. So then once I'd done all the little time warp markers, I then put each one next to each other, which to my horrific finding out was that they were all still out of time because individually, although I had mastered them to the master track, they were not mastered to one another. So they were still slightly out of tempo. So like you could hear the saxophone twice because it was in the background of the tempo blocks and stuff like that. So then I had to rejig all of these individual warpers, add more warpers in. So the warping took forever, but then I finally got it and they all matched up. So when they all matched up, I made one master file and basically brought them down here and lined them all up. So there was only 5 tracks now from like the original, I don't know how many. And then I had a heart attack because I realized, well, I had turned up the sound on, down here I turned it up on the decibels of each individual section because, see, I turned this one up to 24 because some of them were so silent that I just couldn't hear what was contained within them, and I couldn't see each individual beat, and I couldn't match that to the score. So I was like freaking out because when I had mastered that, rendered them into like one main track, I suddenly realized that some of them were way louder than the others. So then what I had to do is change the sound. This is on top of also having to change the sound because in the track itself, on this beautiful score, you can see it says that MP, which luckily from my very limited music knowledge, I knew P meant piano. I want to call this mezze piano. I feel like mezze is a name for food and not what that M stands for, but I'm going to roll with that because I'm allowed to do what I want to do. So, mezze piano. Then we went some things to mezze forte, which is like medium loud, and then forte, which is loud, and then forte, quite loud, and then forte, which is like F off loud, like very loud. And then also some of them were like clicks as well, so I wanted to make it sound more punchy and jumpy. So I wanted to like shorten the warp markers as well, because whoever was playing wasn't playing it quite right. Not a criticism on them, it's just the way that the recording turned out, and it's difficult. So then I was thinking, how the hell am I supposed to do this? And that's when I remembered these wonderful things called mixing and mastering. And I went on here and I clicked the track volume of each individual one, and I zoomed in massively, and I went through and slowly basically mapped piano, mezzo piano, forte, and just mapped the whole way I wanted the song to sound, which I did, constantly clicking on the score to put it up and sort of listening to it and then matching it. Took me like a good few hours. But yeah, that ended up finally working. it is a little quiet, I think, on other people's recordings when they listen to it with headphones, because on my headphones it sounds normal, but I am taking into account that it's on -18, so I think if you put it into your headphones, like -13, it's going to sound really quiet, so you might want to put it on a speaker or something like that, because for my headphones it sounded great. Well, not great, but it sounded like good, and not quiet, but it may sound different for yours. And also I have quite sensitive ears, so each one to their own. And then what I did was I was like, okay, it's not just fun to do like the mixing. We should also do a bit of track panning, because everything was sort of coming at the center, and there was loads of clicks and all that. It's quite a like loud song, and there's lots of stuff going on, so you don't want it all in the middle. So I decided to do a bit of track panning. And I moved some slightly to the left and some slightly to the right, and kept the saxophone and the marimba, which I felt were the two main ones. Was it the marimba or was it the xylophone? Yeah. Ooh, so it was the marimba. I made the marimba and the saxophone stay in the middle. And then once I'd done this, I also had an issue with my xylophone, which is where I had to like, basically some of it was sounding really weird and the music was sounding a different loudness. So basically I cut it all up and then rejigged to where it was like sounding strange and where there were like clear breakpoints, and just rejigged it so that each one had a different number of decibels, and then remastered it back again into another master file. So that happened again. And then, yeah, I had all these individual stems. Then I went to my final one. So I opened another file and made my final Fix the Mix. God, it felt so good making that final Fix the Mix. I was so gassed. But I still had more to do because the track was not finished, because it sounded like, you know, each of the instruments just sounded a bit flat. There was also an issue with my saxophone, which here, it jumps. Now it sounds okay because I fixed it, but it still doesn't sound great. But it basically made like a really horrible sound, and it suddenly was like, meep, and like just awful. So I had to cut it up, and I cut out even a section in it and revamped it and went back on to it with some warp markers. And if you zoomed in, I just stretched these out so that they sounded a bit better, because it didn't sound great. And then what I added this pretty much the same thing on each one, with a few variations. So I EQ'd it and made an individual EQ for each individual track. So that's my calabash, that's my marimba, that's my xylophone. Yeah, so I did that. And then I added reverb, a little bit of reverb, only a tiny bit on some, because I felt they were quite reverby already, because they were recorded in a recording studio. Then I added some classical compression, and I compressed each one on a side chain to the saxophone so that it did not interfere with the saxophone, because that was the main instrument. And then I added a clean amp to my saxophone, because it was coming out a little bit sort of reverby and a bit not nice. So I added a clean so it just sounded more sharp, and each note was more punchy. And I compared this all to the master file to see how clear it was sounding, and also just used my ear. And then I warmed up the highs as well, so that it sounded much nicer. So you can hear it's still a little bit like, and like it kind of annoys me, but I don't know how to get rid of that. And then I did a speech enhancer as well, which was quite fun. And then I found this amazing thing, which I've now forgotten the name of, but it basically told me the key that each thing was in, so I could have used that if I wanted to compare that with the score. I will try and find it out and share that with you so that you can use that. Then I went on my calabash shaker, and I did the same. EQ'd it, used classic compression. I also used a de-esser on this one just to take out some of the high notes. Add a little reverb, and then my favorite thing, which is the utility, which just I use to boost sound, make it a bit more clear. Add a little bit of width so it sounded like it was still being recorded in a studio, not just put through a DAW. And then I also did the balance thing again, so I moved it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, so that it was just out of the way of the saxophone. And I did this for each individual track. And then once I'd done all that, I checked that it was still in time, made a few minor last adjustments, and then I rendered and mastered it into a master file, which I exported, and I will share with you on my SoundCloud. I'm thinking that you're probably very glad that this video was not 40 minutes like the last one, and it was just 14. But if you want to hear more of my voice, you're more than welcome to ask for more videos. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this track, and I hope that I can pass this module. Thank you.